Okay, perfect. Like I was saying, I'm Liz Marimena Feliciano. I'm from the Florence Immigrant Refugee Rights Project. I'm the managing attorney of the Children Pro Bono program. And I've been at the Florence Project for almost 5 years now. In October, it's going to be my 5th anniversary. I graduated from law school in Puerto Rico, and I practice a little of family law, contracts, and civil law. So the song that it was playing before, I think is appropriate because it really helped me to feel a little more relaxed and think about what is my country and our culture. So I graduated from law school in Puerto Rico, like I was saying, and in 2017, I moved to Arizona. And I always wanted to work with something related to human rights. So this job for me has been um, a blessing. I started working with FIRRP in 2019, some months before we started the pandemic and we went remote. I started working as a staff attorney with detain and release unaccompanied minors. And in 2022, I started as a pro bono mentor. I love working with pro bono attorneys, and I love working with my fellow team members. We have 2 legal assistants and 2 additional pro bono mentors. And I've been living in Arizona for around 7 years. I enjoy the desert and going in road trips around the state to enjoy the natural wonders. And today I'm gonna be presenting with a social worker from the Florence Project, Lisette Lerma, and I would like to give her an opportunity to talk about herself.
Okay. Hi.
Lisette, I think you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Okay, there. Sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Lisette Lerma. I've been a social worker for the past decade, but in the last year, I've been working at the Florence Project. But my background includes a diverse range of roles and populations. I've worked with unaccompanied minors through the Office of Refugee and Resettlement. I've also supported family and children going through the Division of Developmental Disabilities, the Department of Child Safety, and I've also participated in community activism, primarily supporting immigrant families. So I graduated from the University of Arizona back in 2013, which now seems like a very long time. And then I got my master's in social work from Arizona State University in 2016. But throughout this time, my journey in social work has been primarily driven by like a commitment for advocating and for empowering vulnerable individuals and communities. So I am really, really happy to be part of the Florence Project. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisette. We have some polls today to answer. If we can have them now. The polls is there's no right or wrong answer. It's just to get a little background of everyone's experience. The first one is if you have noticed a change on the population of unaccompanied minors that you've been working in the past year. And the result is that as the same thing that we have experienced in Arizona, we're receiving kids coming from other countries that we were not working that much before. Next one. Do most of the pro bono attorneys that you practice with? Okay, most of them, no. Okay. So, okay. Okay, most of you have pro bonos with no previous immigration experience. Okay. We can move on. I think most of us are having the same experience and challenges. I'm really happy to be here today and to be with sharing this space with other organizations to know about your guys' experiences and the success that you have in your programs. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of implementing a cultural competency in our programs, but also within ourselves. As we work as managers or coordinators of our programs, we also work as representative of our organization's culture, the values that we work with around our offices. And while I was looking for about this presentation, I wanted to share what is the definition of an ambassador. Sorry. And the Oxford Dictionary defines an ambassador as a person who acts as a representative, as a promoter of a specified activity. So that's what we're doing, right? We are ambassadors of our clients' rights and the advocacy that we do. And when we are talking about working with pro bonos, that we have to represent that same values when we are working with them. And as pro bono mentors and coordinator, it's our role to train those pro bonos. In the poll, I see that many of you work with pro bonos that doesn't have immigration experience. We have to guide them throughout the life of the case, and at the same time, we have to promote a client-centered representation. Now, let's take a look at the agenda. First, I'm going to be talking a little about the Florence Project history and also our bond with pro bono coordination. We will discuss briefly a little about our role as legal service providers in Arizona and the things that we're doing. After that, I'm going to be talking about our pro bono program, the clients that we work with, and also the challenges of the model of our pro bono program. After that, I'm going to be talking about what is cultural competency and why we need it in our programs, not only internally, but also externally working with the pro bono attorneys that are volunteering with us. And at the end, we will discuss ethical considerations and how we can be culturally competent advocates. After I'm done, then I'm going to pass the presentation to Lisette, and Lisette is going to be sharing with you part of what it was CILA that we provide in April of this year. And the presentation was for staff and also for pro bono attorneys and other volunteers. Let's talk about my organization and who is the Florence Project. We are a legal service organization in Arizona, and we provide free legal representation to individuals and children that are in immigration custody. So, individuals that are in adult detention and also children that are in ORR custody. As an organization, we were born from pro bono work. Everything started in 1989 when an immigration judge reached out to the Phoenix legal community and request and ask for assistance for people that were seeking asylum from the civil wars in Central America. The Florence Project was founded with 2 volunteers providing free legal services at Florence, Arizona, in the detention centers in that area. Then in 1991, we adopted the name the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project to reflect a wider scope of advocacy. Any given day here in Arizona, ICE can detain around 3,000 people, including children. And neither of them, as we know, have a right to an attorney. They either have to pay for it or they have to represent themselves. So we assist hundreds of children in Arizona to pursue and obtain legal status. And a little about our mission and vision. Our mission is to provide free legal services and social services to the people that are in custody and that are in removal proceedings in Arizona. And we believe in universal representation, and that's one of our strategic goals for the future. In 2021, I don't have the most recent numbers, but in 2021, we serve around 24,000 people. We serve people from 72 countries. and with a combined of 37 languages. Our children program delivered Know Your Rights presentations to around 11,000 children. The adult program provides direct representation to 249 adults, and our border action team respond to 158 cases of family separation. And again, these are the numbers for 2021. And also our advocacy team joined 96 advocacy efforts. They filed 2 civil lawsuits, and we filed mandamus and habeas corpus claims. And I just want to add that the children program have a pro bono team, the adult program have a pro bono team, but also advocacy trying to join efforts with other law firms that help with these big cases that have a lot of impact. Now, the children program specifically provide Know Your Representations, Know Your Rights presentation at shelters. We periodically also provide Know Your Rights presentations to clients that are released. We advocate to the recollection of data and filing complaints like CBP complaints or family separation reporting. We also provide legal representation to unaccompanied minors that are in ORR custody. And we also place cases with pro bono attorneys. Some of them release cases, some of them mostly are also in ORR custody. And for those pro bonos, we provide training and mentorship. And why are UCs, why are unaccompanied minors coming to the US? First, most of them are coming through the south border. We know that they come without legal status. They are under 18 and they enter without parents or legal guardians. Many of them are coming because they are suffering persecution at home country, either gang-related or domestic violence. Also, many of them are just looking for better conditions of life. In the most recent years, and I see with the polls that we share at the beginning, that you got many of you are experiencing the same. We are observing a change on the UC population that we're serving, and we're receiving more clients from Africa, from countries from Africa like Senegal, Mauritania, Guinea, and also we're receiving more clients from Afghanistan that have been crossing the south border. And many of them have political or ethnic, suffer political or ethnic persecution. So our survey population is changing. That means that we also confront some challenges, securing interpreters, translating documents, and building a strong client-attorney relationship while using adequate interpretation. And those cases, we have been placing cases from kids coming from different parts of the world, not only clients that are coming from Central America. And let's talk about our pro bono program. The first thing is that we have a full mentorship service program. We assign a pro bono mentor to the pro bono attorney, and that pro bono mentor will guide the pro bono attorney through the immigration process. The first thing is that we recruit attorneys from law firms in the Phoenix area, also solo practitioners. And when we visit the law firms, I usually go with the adult pro bono manager, and we do a brown bag presentation. And from the beginning of the meeting, I like to share with the attorneys that join how is working with UCs, what are the legal reliefs that we work the most. But I also use the opportunity to share trends or to and to share the challenges related to the case, just to start just setting expectations. And as part of our pro bono program, we develop 9 to 12 CLEs during the year. One or two of those presentations will be related to ethical duties of working with UCs. And also 1 or 2 of those presentations are in partnership with our social services team. And we also provide one-on-one meetings with the pro bono attorneys just to discuss the case. We provide interpretation and translation during the case, and we assist the pro bono attorneys during the meetings with the clients. So here I have a list, and we will do a little exercise after I read this list. And these are the challenges of working with pro bono attorneys. First, some of them don't have previous immigration experience. Some of them have not worked with survivors of trauma or with kids before working with us. Some of them don't have access to interpreters. Also, we have to work with them to set boundaries, and the topic of today, also we have to train them to implement cultural competency as a skill. Now, if you have other challenges that are not part of the list, please feel free to put it in the chat. We may not go through them, but it's good to share. And now I want to discuss one by one. And what I want to try to do right now, and we're not going to participate now, like sharing your thoughts, but if you can try to do the exercise while you listen to this part, that will be good. We're gonna be talking about bias. So I want to go through the list and try to look at the different challenges with a different perspective. Right. For example, the first one, we indeed have pro bono attorneys that don't have previous experience of working with survivors of trauma or kids. But also we do have a good pool of attorneys that indeed have that experience. So we should not have that as a challenge, say, in the way that we should not be creating a stereotype that all the pro bono attorneys that work with us not necessarily have the experience, because some of them does have the experience because they have either collaborate with pro bono organizations in other jurisdictions, or because they were part of a legal clinic in their law school where they were able to work with that population. Also, let's talk about no access to interpretation. That may be a challenge, but that is also a challenge to even immigration court. The next one, setting boundaries. That's still a challenge, but it's not an impossible one to overcome. We can provide training to our pro bono attorneys, and we should have meetings like one-on-one meetings where we can disclose how to work with a case. What I wanted to do is to try to change our perspective of what is a challenge or what is something negative of working with pro bonos, and give it a little change and see it in a more positive perspective, right? It's an opportunity of training, it's an opportunity of sharing with the legal community in our jurisdiction of what is the reality of immigration work. Now, the last one, the one that we're going to be talking about today, that is a real challenge, implementing cultural competency as a skill for attorneys. And I think that's a real challenge, because to be able to implement those skills with our pro bono attorneys, we have to teach and we have to learn that for ourselves first, right? We cannot teach them to be cultural competent if we ourselves don't try to do that. And as we talk about it at the beginning, we are ambassadors of cultural competency for our pro bono attorneys. Now, let's talk about what is cultural competency. And the National Center of Cultural Competence defined cultural competence as a set of congruent behaviors, attitudes, and policies that come together as a system among professionals, and is enable a system for those professions to work effectively in a cross-cultural situation. So with that definition, we can see that cultural competence is rules, right? It's something that we create, it's a system, it's something that we came together and decide what is like the standards of how we're gonna deal with certain situations related to culture. So also, the word culture is used in the term because it talks about patterns of human behavior. And the word competence is used because it implies having the capacity to function effectively. And like I said, we have to implement it ourselves first in our organizations because we work in a diverse environment. We have attorneys, for example, we have attorneys with different backgrounds, and we have legal assistant here with many different cultural backgrounds. So to be able to teach our pro bonos, we definitely have to be able to work with our coworkers in a cultural competent environment. And I also want to make a difference of cultural competency. Cultural competency is the skill. Cultural competence is the set of rules. So cultural competency service legal service provider understand that everyone have bias. All of us have it. Our clients have bias. Our pro bono attorneys have bias. And this doesn't make us a bad person. This is like normal because bias and stereotypes are a product of the environment that we're at. But it makes us a better advocates and better attorneys and better programs if we're able to overcome those bias. Bias are preconceived ideas that individuals have about something, right? It doesn't have to be a negative bias. Maybe we think that clients coming from a certain part of the world may need more protection than others. So it's not necessarily something negative, but still is a preconceived idea that we should try to, it will be there, right? It will be there, but we have to try to overcome to give the opportunity to our clients to be the ones sharing their experience. And bias are influenced by the environment, upbringing, and the society. And they can impact the way that we treat other individuals. So in comparison with cultural competency, we're not trained to develop bias. It's something that happened. But cultural competency can be trained, and it's a system of rules, like I say, so we can create what is best practices related to cultural competency. Cultural competency need to be implemented not only when we talk about legal representation, but like I say, we are working in such culturally diverse environments in our organizations, so we need to implement it also internally. And also embracing our difference to work as a collective and to be able to transfer those practices to our pro bono attorneys and to the legal community that is always observing what are our practices and looking for training from us. And how we can implement cultural competency. How we do it in our program is that first, we have to have in mind that every of our clients are unique. They have unique experiences. They have unique stories, and we need to let them talk about it. They are coming from different part of the world, and even clients coming from the same country, they will have complete different experience or family structures. One way to address the volunteer needs for training is to develop the trainings ourselves in-house. And some of the things that we do as a pro bono program is providing trainings year-round. Our CLEs are free. We always provide basic trainings like removal defense for UCs, and special immigrant juvenile status trainings. But also, for example, this year we make a presentation about cultural competency and in relation with trauma-informed lawyering. Also, we did a presentation related to drafting a client's declaration. And next year, we're planning to do a CLE about best practices when meeting and interviewing UCs, which sounds something really simple, but sometimes even saying good morning or talking about how our clients doing in school are things that we have to remind our pro bono attorneys. We have to let them know those are best practices. Have natural conversations with our clients like they are a human being, an individual going through an immigration process, but also going through anxiety and the separation of families or the situation of their family countries or the families in home country. So We often include in our CLEs what are best practices and practical tips that we can also, and we also partner with our social services to provide those best practices. Also, something that I've been doing is that we provide pro bono attorneys with other materials. For example, I provide with some new pro bono attorneys with the CILA pro bono guide for them to have an introduction. Also, we conduct one-on-one meetings. Something that I've been doing is meeting with new pro bono attorneys before placing the case with them to set expectations, right? Many of our clients will be our clients for about 5 years until they are able to apply for to lawful permanent residency. So we want to set those expectations from the beginning with the pro bono attorneys. Also, that those one-on-one meetings will be will continue through the life of the case, but with the pro bono mentor. We mostly work with clients that are in our custody, and during those meetings, we provide support to the pro bono attorneys. We're there in those meetings. If the pro bono mentor is not able to join that meeting, a legal assistant from the pro bono team will join the pro bono attorney and the client. We kind of co-counsel. We don't file our E28s or G28s on the cases. That is the pro bono attorney role. But we are there for the client too, and we are there to be able to refer the clients to social services if needed. So another thing that we have been successful doing in our pro bono program is making the pro bono attorney part of the social economic aspect of the case. And with this part, we have to be careful, right? We want to set boundaries. We don't want the attorneys to take the role of a social worker, but I think it's important to make them part of that part of the case because they can understand the client's necessities, their concerns, and which many times is tied to their cultural background. Also, if a client needs support to find a school, or if they're having issues at school, a pro bono attorney can advocate for them. We have a case where a pro bono attorney advocated for a client that was suspended, and she successfully advocated for the client, and the client was able to go back to school before. And finally, at the end of the year, something that we do is to celebrate our pro bono attorneys. And we use the opportunity to highlight challenges and also the success of our pro bono attorneys and how they put in practice the skills that we have been training them. And why it's important to promote cultural competency in our programs. I have here 3 keys. I don't think that's the only, those are not the only points and the only reasons to promote cultural competency, but for me, these are really on point. The first one is to become better lawyers and advocates, right? Cultural competency help us to obtain more skills, such as interview skills, legal research, or to expand our knowledges about other people's cultures, and to check our bias, and also to accept diversity. While we are assessing the client's potential relief, that requires that we identify very personal and specific information about their culture, about how the society perceives their culture, and also how they are perceived in their culture and their society. And also, a cultural competent attorney can advocate better for their clients' interests and also their expressed wishes. Because when you have cultural competency, you are better listening. You listen to your clients. The second one, and I want to highlight that cultural competency is a skill needed to be successful as a trauma-informed lawyer. Many of our clients' trauma are influenced by the culture and by their family structure. So understanding our clients' ethnicities and cultural background will help us to create a safe space for the clients. And that's one of the reasons to promote cultural competency in our programs, because it will create a safe space for the clients, for them to be able to not feel judged when they are sharing their stories, and also they will have a space where they can share their story without reliving it. So cultural competency and trauma-informed can work together. And finally, the third key point is that cultural competent attorneys are more effective when they are providing representation, which at the end is also an ethical duty, right? When we are promoting those values, we're supporting our pro bono programs, we benefit our clients, but also we benefit the attorneys because they are they will acquire new skills. So we promote cultural competency because we want to provide a client-centered program. We want to provide client-centered services. So if you see the three key points, I put safe space in the middle because that's where our clients should be, always in the center of the trainings that we provide and always in the center of the case. And let's talk about the ethical duties related to cultural competency. As I mentioned previously, cultural competence not only benefit clients, but also promote compliance with our ethical duties and the ethical duties of our pro bono attorneys. The ABA rules, which Arizona adopted in 1984, in the rule 1.1, talk about competence, right? At the beginning, that's one of the most important things when we are representing someone. And competence is of a particular matter include inquiring into an analysis of the factual and legal elements of the problem. It's a use of methods and procedures meeting the standard of competent practitioners. So competence is, again, it's not something that just come out of like naturally. It's something that we as attorneys and legal service providers have to set. We have to create those standards to be able to be competent. And let's keep always in mind that we own the same duties to our child clients as we will do to an adult client. So our clients, even if they're young people, they have the right to be part of the case, and for them to be able to express how they want, what are the express wishes. And competence require commitment, dedication, but also require listening to your client and their unique experience, not making assumptions, right? When we work with our clients, we want to listen because it will help us to identify potential reliefs and things like PSGs for asylum. That's a good example. When we are talking about diligence, a lawyer should pursue a matter on behalf of a client despite opposition, obstruction, or personal inconvenience to the lawyer. So our preconceived ideas of what is best for the client cannot cloud our mind of when a client shares what are their expressed wishes. And also the lack of cultural knowledge cannot be a reason for an attorney lack of diligence working on a case. If you don't know something, you need to learn it, right? If you're not being trained on something, you have to get trained. And that's part of what is being diligent and competent. When you don't know something, you look for people that may be able to train you. Also, when we talk about cultural competency and our ethical duties, we're talking about the client-attorney relationship and how this set of skills will help us to have a healthy relationship with our clients while we are able to identify legal reliefs. A competent representation requires legal knowledge, skills, preparation, the preparation that is reasonable for the representation of your clients. And when we talk about reasonable preparation, we're talking about reasonable preparation specifically for immigration. So keep in mind that lawyers and advocates not necessarily have to have special trainings or prior experience, but they need reasonable preparation. That is the key. Diligent representation, it means that a lawyer or an advocate must act with commitment, with dedication to the interests of the client. I'm almost done with my part, and I say that my time is kind of getting short, but let's talk about how we can implement cultural competency in our programs, right? And the first thing is that we need to understand our own bias. To be culturally competent advocates, we have to understand our own culture, our beliefs, and where they're coming from, right? And it's accepting that sometimes in our own cultures, we have some practices that may not be okay or the values can be different from the client's values, from even the US values. So it's important to understand our own culture and how we are not supposed to be also imposing our values to our clients or to our coworkers. Also understand that other cultures do things differently from your culture, and accept that bias are not good or bad. It's something that happened, and the culture and the clients' practices in their culture is also not good or bad. It's just facts. It's things that just happen, right? And finally, to communicate effectively with and advocate with our clients, we need to recognize that their culture made them who they are. And that's, again, like I say, that's sometimes related to the trauma. So we need to understand their background. And how cultural competency and trauma-informed work together. A trauma-informed advocate is more empathic. They are able to put themselves in their client's position. They acknowledge the client's experience. They just not admit or assume that the client's facts will be the same facts of a client coming from that same country. They listen carefully. When you are trauma-informed and a trauma-informed advocate, you listen, you allow your client to tell their story. You don't fill the blanks for them. And we empower the clients to be active in their cases. Something that I always do is every time that I have a meeting with a client, I will, if it's a special immigrant juvenile visa, what they have, I will explain that to them. And I will tell them, hey, I'm going to explain that to you maybe in our next meeting or maybe in 2 or 3 more months, because I want them to understand how they were able to in the future be lawful permanent residents. And because it's their cases, so they need to understand what is happening. A cultural competent advocate gain the trust of their clients. They listen to the clients to avoid stereotypes. They create safe spaces, and they understand and educate themselves on cultural difference. And they will trust you more. If you start a meeting with a judgy comment, or if they share something and you show negativity about that, if it's something related to their culture, they may shut down for you. So you don't want to be someone that judge a client. And some tips to be able to accomplish cultural competency and trauma-informed lawyering is to start the meeting asking your client how their day is going on, like good morning, good afternoon, sometimes like giving like shaking their hands, right? Something simple as if they have eaten during the day, what is their what they do for fun, what is their favorite food, or what is something that they may be missing from family. It's important to listen to them. When working with unaccompanied minors, do not assume that you already know their story because they're coming from a country that sometimes something, for example, clients coming from Guatemala, many of them have gun-related claims, but not necessarily it was just, it will be the same story. So let them tell you their story. Pay attention to your client, ask questions related to what they're telling you, research their country and culture, but don't use the information to make assumptions. Make the information to educate yourself. Again, let the client be the one telling you their story. And cultural competency will help you to understand your client's trauma. Like again, like I say, many times is related to their cultural background. Now I'm gonna pass to Lisette. And like I said at the beginning, this is part of a presentation that we did in April, and I want to share the part of the social services team with you. Lisa, you're on.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. So yes, as Liz Mari mentioned, this is an example of a training that we did earlier this year for our pro bono attorneys. So during this portion of the presentation, I will be speaking about cultural awareness, which is essentially the foundation for developing cultural competency. So I have a definition by the Collins Dictionary that defines cultural awareness as a person's understanding of the differences between themselves and people from other countries or other backgrounds, especially differences in attitude, beliefs, and values. So essentially, cultural awareness means, being conscious of our own cultural identity and then how it affects our perceptions and our interactions with people from different cultures. It's also this desire to learn about those differences that do exist and having an openness to being conscious of our own culturally shaped values, beliefs, perceptions, and biases. And then something to note that, when we're talking about culture, we're not just talking about race and ethnicity, right? It's culture encompasses much more that's not seen by the human eye. So culture can be shaped by a variety of things like religion, age, educational level, body size, heritage, family traditions, physical and cognitive abilities, sexual orientation, gender identity, and even geographic and socioeconomic experiences. So, these are some factors of culture that we should really be taking into consideration when we're working with our clients. And then something to know is that, as professionals, it's also very important to know that our cultural awareness is influenced by many factors, both personal or external. So some of them could be like our family and upbringing. Those cultural values and norms that were instilled during childhood can really shape our perception and understanding of other cultures. Also, our exposure to diverse cultural perspectives through education, if we have personal travel experiences, or if we've lived in other countries, that can broaden our cultural perspective. Also our own personal attitudes and beliefs, um, including diversity and inclusion in our own social circles and in our community, as well as like portrayal of different cultures in the media can shape our perception. So if there's positive and diverse representation in the media, this can foster understanding, or it can also reinforce stereotypes or prejudices that we may have. Um, Cultural awareness can also be influenced by organization. And so, for example, a workforce that prioritizes diversity and inclusion, they will, provide trainings, resources, and again, having, leaders who adopt inclusive behavior or demonstrate cultural sensitivity. This can influence other staff to adopt like similar practices in the organization. So these are just, some factors that influence our cultural awareness. But in the next slide, moving forward, we will be exploring this a little deeper. So I know that Liz Mari mentioned, Liz Mari, if you want to go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, for some reason it say that the sharing stopped. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Let me start again. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I can just continue while you
Okay.
share the screen. So, I know that Liz Mari touched on biases, but yes, biases are this tendency or preference towards certain group, idea, or concept that influences our judgment. Biases can be explicit, meaning conscious and deliberate, or implicit, unconscious and automatic. There are positive and negative biases. So for example, elderly people don't know how to use technology, or people from Asia are extremely smart. While some biases may be true for some individuals, It doesn't mean that these statements are applicable to everyone. We may have, an elderly person who's quite equipped to navigate technology, and we may have someone from Asia who had difficulties with learning. So something to know is just that, biases affect the way that we show up in the world and how we're treating people. We may have an expectation that a client is not able to do something, and we may be underestimating them, or we may be expecting them to understand or to accomplish something that they may not be familiar with. So it's just something to consider. There are many biases out there, but I do want to focus on ethnocentrism, stereotypes, and language bias. So starting with ethnocentrism, this is this natural inclination for us as individuals to view like our culture as superior, and then we hold like a biased view when comparing it to other cultures. So it's sort of like this idea that our culture, like we do things the right way, and so ultimately, ethnocentrism is a universal human trait that we all sometimes experience. It's just important for us to be aware, that this happens, because oftentimes we're evaluating other cultures based on the standards, values, and beliefs of our own culture. And it can happen very quickly. A simple example of this is, we notice a client from Peru who's enjoying a plate of roasted guinea pig. And then our ethnocentrism lens kick in, and we think like, they're eating guinea pig? That's strange, or that's gross, But the reality is that, in Peru, guinea pig is just another protein like American chicken, So it's just something to keep in mind. The next one is stereotyping. So this is a bias that most of us are very familiar with. It's essentially attributing or generalizing characteristics or behaviors or traits to all members of a certain group. So for example, all African Americans are athletic, or all Latinos are feisty, or all people from Japan are tidy. It may be true for some individuals from that culture, but it's not necessarily true to everyone, or to the group as a whole. And then the last one is language bias. So this refers to preferential treatment or disadvantage experience by individuals based on their use of language or their language abilities. So this is assuming that proficiency in a language is indicative of their intelligence. So for example, a person or a group of people who speak certain dialects or have accents when they speak, or have limited English proficiency, that they are being viewed as less intelligent or less capable than others. So ultimately, when talking about biases, I know Liz Mari, briefly mentioned this, but it really is normal and it's common, and it's just important for us to be aware of them, because, it doesn't make us a good or bad person necessarily. It's just something that maybe we learned or we were taught along the way, but it really is, practicing self-reflection and being willingness to challenge our own assumptions and biases, and just making an effort to learn the client, and meeting them where they're at, rather than making assumptions about their culture or what we perceive their identity to be. And then in the next slide, yes. I would like to share with you a video by Brene Brown. She shares valuable insight into the distinction between empathy and sympathy, which is very important when we're speaking about cultural awareness and, fostering that genuine connection and support with culturally diverse clients. So yeah, if we can just play the video. I mean, if you can try to get it work, it's a great video. I highly recommend, or we could put the link later on so you can all go back and share it. But, in this video, Brene Brown highlights this idea that empathy is feeling with people. And then through this, we connect with them by, meeting them where they're at, Um, Sometimes our clients have gone through a lot of traumatic experiences. It can be very difficult for our clients to disclose their trauma or their experiences to us. So it's very crucial that we're mindful in ensuring that we're implementing this practice of empathy, of feeling with people, rather than minimizing or not acknowledging or judging them based on the information that they're disclosing to us. And a good example of this is, we may have a client who discloses that they're gay. In their home country, they were persecuted because of that. They're carrying around a lot of guilt and shame associated with their sexual orientation. And they have this belief that, being gay is a sin, or that it makes you less than. And so, being culturally aware is having this understanding that, in their culture, it's not socially acceptable, and that it is something that conflicts with, our own personal and religious views. Um, so when they're disclosing this type of information to us, it's important that we're incorporating the feeling with people, being present in the moment with them as they're disclosing their lived experiences. And this is also part of being trauma informed. It's about validating and acknowledging the difficulties of their experiencing. And she has this term, Brene Brown, where she says, sometimes we have this tendency that when someone's sharing very difficult information, we want to like silver line it, which means that we want to like try to make it better in some way. And sometimes it's not about that. It's just about really acknowledging those difficulties that they've gone through. And an example of silver lining something would be like, as the client disclosed, this difficulty, this trauma that they've gone through, us responding as, well, on the bright side, now you're in the US, it's more socially accepted here, you're going to be good. So that wouldn't be very helpful, right? Because as we know, this shame, the fear, and the guilt that our client has experienced can carry on even if they're thousands and thousands of miles away from their country of origin. So it's something to be aware of and incorporate as we're meeting with our clients. And then if we want to move forward to the next slide. Thank you, Lisa Marie. So these are just some approaches to practicing self-awareness. The first one, educate yourself. This is, just taking time to invest in learning about different cultures, their customs, communication styles. There's also different ways that people like to greet each other. Reading books, attending workshops, or even, keeping up with current events and issues that are affecting different cultural communities. And the next one is practice self-awareness. So this is just, reflecting on your own personal beliefs and how they might affect the interaction that you're having with people from different cultures or backgrounds. Are there beliefs that might be influencing your behavior or your decision making? And just being honest with yourself about these biases and their origins, paying attention to ourselves on what comes up for us when working with the client, like especially if they're disclosing information that might be traumatic or difficult, or it may go against our beliefs and our practices. Is that emotion is what is coming up for us? Is that a strong emotion of judgment or relatedness? So just staying attuned to ourselves. The next one is seek to understand. So this is like when we're engaging with individuals from different cultures, practicing active listening by fully focusing, on our client, avoiding those premature judgments or responses. and showing genuine interest, in their cultural backgrounds and respecting their unique needs and preferences. And you can do this by, asking open-ended questions when it's appropriate. You can say like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or can you tell me about your culture? These type of questions will also help you be able to understand and the client a little better. And then practice empathy. So it's also important to practice empathy and self-compassion with ourselves. I know, like, in our journey of trying to be culturally competent, we might want to be perfect. But really, allow yourself to make mistakes, because we're human. We're all human, and we're, trying to learn. But when we do, make a mistake, it's just really important to, apologize if you did make a mistake or, offended someone accidentally. Uh, this shows that, you are demonstrating respect and commitment to personal growth as well. And it's a journey. Becoming culturally competent really is a journey. And then lastly, embrace differences. So actively seeking out value from or different perspectives from different backgrounds or different cultures, and then using these experiences to improve our future interactions with other clients, and then just continuously reflecting on our own behavior and attitudes towards those differences. And then considering how our actions and then our beliefs align with our commitment to embracing diversity. And then in the next slide, these are just some things to keep in mind when incorporating cultural awareness in our work with our clients. So, for example, others may use different language, words, tone, and volume when communicating. So assuming that, someone is angry or violent due to them speaking louder than we're used to, this may not accurately reflect what the client is trying to convey or how the client is currently feeling, like what that emotion might be. So it's just important to always check in, ask questions if needed, and to try to understand the client. The next one is religion is diverse and complex. So religious differences may lead clients to behave, think, or engage in a different way that we may be used to. So it's just important to remember that, we're all different. And then we have gender norms and roles. So this is for us to keep in mind that of our own biases and views in reference to gender norms. So for example, in some cultures, men make all the decisions for women in the family, who they marry, what is appropriate for women to wear, activities they can or cannot engage in, and this might be normal or normalized for them, in their culture. Then there's emotional expression. So emotions are expressed differently in different cultures. Anger might be quite okay to be expressed in some cultures, while it may also be frowned upon in other cultures. Especially when we think about gender, in some cultures, it may be frowned upon also for males to cry. So that's something to consider when we're working with our clients. And then lastly is it's not personal. I think sometimes we can take things personal just naturally, but it's really important to remember that our clients are going through many different situations and emotions, along with also adjusting to being in the US. And, it's important just to keep in mind that, our clients are going to be expressive or express their emotions or express it through behavior. And it's not personal towards us, it's just their own expression of emotions. So it's okay to check in with them and to seek to understand rather than judge them and become frustrated or, by their actions. Okay.
Hi, Lisa.
And then,
I just wanted to flag that it is 3:38, so we're a little over time. So just wanted to flag that for you if you're able to wrap up shortly.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right. Continue. Thank you.
Yeah, so coping with the differences, ultimately, this just means for us to develop body awareness, to be attuned to our own physical and emotional responses. If we're feeling really hot, if we have muscle tension, shallow breathing, this might be our body telling us that, something is happening with us, especially when, it could be difficult sometimes. With our clients, like if they have differences, so our body might be letting us know like, hey, like something's happening, we may need a break, or if something made us feel uncomfortable, it's definitely okay to ask to end the meeting and maybe come back at a later time. Or you can always um, ask for support from like social services or your pro bono manager. And then there's different coping skills that you can use in managing distress in these types of experiences. I won't be able to cover them. I was hoping to, but normally we cover, deep breathing relaxation, progressive muscle relaxation, and then five senses imagery activity. But these are all really good activities or to be able to self-regulate when we're experiencing distress in these type of situations. And then we had two scenarios for you if you keep going to the next slide, but I don't think we will have time for them. But you can always come back at a later time and just try to see what would how would you respond to a situation. And then we can continue to the next slide. Okay, and we could keep moving forward. Yes. So that's basically it. That's the end of the presentation on implementing cultural competency and awareness with our clients. That's our contact information if you have any questions for us. But also feel free to unmute yourself or type any questions in the comments.
Thank you so much, Lizette and Lise Marie, for this very informative presentation. Please note their contact information here on the slide, and of course, it's included in the handouts on the website for the symposium. All right, well, we're going to take a slightly shorter break and start the next presentation at 3:45, but we hope you enjoy the music and